Hello, I'm Christine Manning with the Wine Education Institute. Welcome to this advanced tour of California. Today we will cover the wine laws of the US and then dive into the viticulture powerhouse that is California. To give you some context, if California were a country, it would be the fourth largest wine producer in the world. While all 50 states have some form of wine production, California makes up 80% of the US's total output. It is massive. But for a long time, the perception of California wine was binary. Either was inexpensive jug wine or very expensive, powerful Cabernets. Now, while us locals feel we do not nearly get our due of appreciation for US wines, the reality is that of all that's produced, only about 5% leaves the US. So it's not a dominant player on the global stage compared to Chile or Australia. But you can see some in-depth questions on California on your Level 3 exams, so it's best to be prepared. Let's dive right in. In this session, we're going to break down three things. First, starting with US wine law and how the AVA system works, the California environment, how a state this sunny manages to grow everything from cool climate Pinot Noir to super ripe, inky purple Zins, and the regions. We will tour the North Coast, Central Coast, and Central Valley, focusing on the specific appellations relevant to a WSET Level 3 exam. First, let's start with the rules of the wine game in the US. Unlike France or Italy, where the wine law tells you what to grow and how to grow it, US wine law is primarily about defining boundaries. The governing system is based on the American Viticultural Area, or AVA. An AVA is simply a delimited geographical area. It guarantees where the grapes come from. But importantly, it does not dictate varieties, yields, irrigation options, or winemaking techniques. The labeling rules you need to know are the percentages, and they are strict. First, our grape variety. If a label says Cabernet Sauvignon or any variety, it must contain at least 75% of that named grape. If a vintage is stated, like 2018, and has an AVA on it, 95% of the grapes have to come from that year. And then there's the origin or the AVA. If the label says Napa Valley, 85% of the grapes must come from that defined AVA. Finally, if there's estate bottled on the label, it means 100% of the grapes were grown on the land, owned or controlled by the winery, and the wine was produced on site. Now let's look at the environment. California generally has a Mediterranean climate. It has warm, dry summers and mild, wet winters. If you look at the latitude, California should be baking hot. Its length would imply our north-south would be a key to our climate, but it's really not compared to our important cooling influences, and there are three to mention. First, the California ocean current brings freezing cold water down from the north. This cools the air above the water. Second, we have fog. That cold air hits the warm land and creating thick fog. This fog is drawn inland through gaps in the coastal mountain ranges every afternoon and evening. It acts like a blanket, cooling the vines and shutting down ripening overnight. And last, altitude. Many vineyards are planted on mountain sites where temperatures are naturally cooler. Being on the other side of mountains away from the ocean means a potential for very high temperatures, with many of these areas making raisins if they could grow grapes at all. The downside of this sunny climate is a lack of rain during the growing season. Drought is a major hazard. Irrigation is widespread, with drip irrigation being the most common method to conserve water. While almost every grape you can think of is planted somewhere in California, the major ones are Cabernet Sauvignon, which is the most widely planted black grape, produces full-bodied, concentrated wines. Zinfandel is often seen as California's heritage grape. It ripens unevenly, so harvest timing is important. It creates full-bodied, high-alcohol wines, often with some residual sugar and flavors of red and black fruits, sometimes evolving into dried fruit notes like prune. Merlot is widely planted, making soft, velvety wines, and Pinot Noir thrives in the cool, foggy coastal areas. Chardonnay is the most planted white variety. Styles can range from inexpensive high-volume wines to premium examples that rival Burgundy. Sauvignon Blanc is often made in a fruity style, sometimes oak, which is famously called Fumé Blanc. Now let's get into our regions, starting with our most well-known, the North Coast. This includes Napa County, Sonoma, and Mendocino County. The Napa Valley AVA is essentially a funnel. It opens to the San Pablo Bay in the south and then closes up north, surrounded on the east and west by 2 mountain ranges. Fog will enter from the south. Therefore, the southern AVAs are cooler and it gets progressively warmer as you move north. The specific sub-AVAs to know can be broken down into valley floor or hillside sites. On the valley floor, we have Los Carneros AVA. This sits right in the south and it spans both Napa and Sonoma. It is cool, windy, and foggy. It is famous for high-quality Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and largely used for sparkling wine production. Stag's Leap District, Oakville, and Rutherford are in the heart of the valley. It is warm enough here to fully ripen Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, and these wines are famous for being full-bodied with ripe tannins and black fruit. St. Helena and Calistoga are further north. Fog often burns off early here, making these the warmest AVAs. They will produce the fullest-bodied, most concentrated Cabernet Sauvignons, as well as ripe Zinfandels. The mountain AVAs to know are Howell Mountain and Mount Veeder. These are located above our fog layer. They get direct, intense morning sun, but are cooled by altitude. Wines here have higher tannin and structural acidity compared to our valley floor wines. West of Napa is Sonoma. It is larger and more geographically diverse with a very strong break in the coastal mountains called the Petaluma Gap that lets cool air flood in. The Russian River Valley is ideally situated to catch that cool fog. It is world-class territory for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, producing elegant wines. Dry Creek Valley is located on the hillsides above the fog. It is warmer and famous for Old Vine Zinfandel and Sauvignon Blanc. The Alexander Valley is further inland and even warmer. The climate is perfect for soft-textured, full-bodied Cabernet Sauvignons. And the Sonoma coast is a huge AVA that covers the rugged, cold vineyards right on the Pacific Ocean, produces high-acid, lean, and complex Pinot Noirs. North of Sonoma is Mendocino County. It is generally warmer and protected by coastal hills, though the Anderson Valley is very cool and has a reputation for quality sparkling wines. Moving south of San Francisco, we find the Central Coast. This is a massive area and defined by the cooling influence of the ocean. The vineyards in the Santa Cruz Mountains have diverse soils. They produce elegant Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, and Pinot Noirs. In Monterey, the Salinas Valley acts as a wind tunnel, funneling cold air from the ocean. Near the coast, it is very cool. Great for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, but not beach vacations. Further south in the valley, it's warmer, allowing for Merlot and Cabernet. In San Luis Obispo County, we find Paso Robles. This is a very important region to know. It is further inland and separated from the ocean by mountains, making it noticeably hot and sunny. The prime wines from this territory are full-bodied Cabernet Sauvignon and an increasing amount of Rhone varieties like Syrah and Grenache. Because of the heat, they can produce high-volume concentrated red blends as well. The geography in Santa Barbara County is pretty unique. The valleys run east-west, which funnels cold ocean air deep inland. And the Santa Marita Valley is a very cool AVA. It is famous for premium Pinot Noir and Chardonnay that retain high acidity due to its chilly maritime influence. And finally, we have the Central Valley. This is a vast, flat, agricultural heartland of California. It is hot and dry and relies heavily on irrigation. It produces the vast majority of California's high-volume, inexpensive wine, as well as a lot of other produce. If there is one subregion you have to know in here, though, it is Lodi. Lodi sits in the middle of Central Valley, but manages to benefit from cooling breezes coming from the San Francisco Bay Delta. It is home to some of the oldest, best Zinfandel vines in the state. These old vines produce low yields of concentrated complex fruit, making Lodi a source of high-quality wine in a region otherwise known for bulk production. So let's recap the California landscape. We operate under the AVA system, which defines geography, not style. Remember the rules, 85% for most California AVAs that aren't counties. Standard US rules say 75%. 75% for varietal and 95% for vintage. The climate is defined by a battle between the hot sun and the cool ocean fog, with altitude being a moderating influence. We toured the north coast, distinguishing the valley floor of Oakville and Rutherford from the cool Pinot Noirs of Russian River and Los Carneros. Moving south towards the central coast, we saw diversity from windy Monterey to the hot Paso Robles to the transverse valleys of Santa Barbara. And finally, Lodi, the home of old vine Zinfandels. California offers a massive range of styles, but they all share that common thread: the ability to ripen fruit fully while retaining freshness thanks to the unique geography of the coast. Thank you for joining me, and good luck with your studies. Cheers!